Hello everyone, this is 3D Axis. Today's video I'd like to talk about the lessons that I learned through this render study. So the initial thought of this study is I want to try to practice the scale and learning the technique that how I can approach a traditional CG rendering in Blender, which the workflow is a little bit different compared to what I came from, which is game and video games. So there are a few lessons I learned through this study, and I think it is good to share the lessons with you to help you boost your workflow. So after this, you wouldn't fall into the same trench that I did for myself. So there are 5 key points I want to address. These 5 points, I would strongly recommend you go through it, and laterly you can use my idea to optimize your workflow. So everything could be run smoother and more efficiency on your side. And those 5 points, I wouldn't fall into the same problem next time for my own portfolio stuff. So the first thing I would like to share is about link files. As you may know, a lot of people, they bring their assets, their models, whatever they can find, and just grab into the Blender scene and go for render. In this case, it'll be very headache if you quickly, for example, kit bash a lot of things. And when you literally want to modeling them, tweak them, or adjust them, you will find yourself very hard to visualize it and select things. For example, take this elevator cabin as an example. If you take a look, this cabin has a lot of parts. These parts, some of them are quickly modeled by like just myself. Another small like dressing bolts, joints, they are all came from like kit bash assets. But let's say if you want to do a little bit modification or modeling stuff in this scene, it would be very headache because as you can see, if you turn the camera around, it will block your sight. Also, you can very easily select individual things, which is objects in your scene. So it's hard to manipulate such amount of brushes or models together. So here, I recommend everyone do this, which what I called dev things for optimizing your workflow. The key point is here. Not only the original scene is much more heavier to see the result of rendering, it's also hard to manipulate each set. But in here you can see this scene only contains several assets, which is the major material that I use for the walls and floors, and also the cabins. Here you can see. So in this such a light scene, you can easily manipulate a lot of stuff, quick kit bashing, and nothing stops you from there. And literally what all you need is just link the file to this render scene so you can have your result. And for my preference, I usually goes for collections, link collections. So for this cabin, or for each frame section for this elevator, I use a collection to hold all the brushes, which is the meshes that I need, into a single collection. So literally I link the collection into this render scene. So through this way, you can easily approach very clean workflow. It's not only benefits you to modeling or to tweak stuff, but also it is very clear because in this look dev scene, you can clearly visualize what the material looks like in the traditional or standard lighting condition. So therefore, you have much better control for your own assets. That's the first lesson I learned, and I will keep using that trick in the future. The second stuff is like in here. I recommend everyone can use their look dev scene to set up and tweak their material. Why is that? because a lot of people, they use material with a lot of nodes. Those nodes and those material settings are very cost during rendering. For example, on this floor, I have the tessellation and I have vertex blend. So it's combined the clean floor, concrete floor and the broken part. But if you want quick visualize this result in the render scene, it would take so much longer to say it because you have lighting incantation, you have volumetric fog. All those stuff are blocks you to quick iterate your assets. In this look depth scene, you can see it is very clear and very easily. You just tweak the render set to cycle render, you can have the final result. So you can see what the material look like. And you can quickly adjust the material setting, etc., for have a very clear result. So that's the second lesson, and that's the second thing I would also recommend everyone doing this. And the third one is material itself. I saw a lot of Blender tutorial. They are very clever, very smart, use a lot of different nodes, assets to smartly approach the material without using UV. In that case, it would be very good if you practice the nodes and the options you have in the material section. But if you want to do a full CG rendering, it will be very headache if you manipulate those one by one. The same issue comes around because each time you get the result, you get results through rendering, and it took way longer to calculate the assets, the material, all the nodes, and came to the final result. And let's say, for example, you have a blend node in your material, and each time you take the value, you have to render several seconds at least to get the result, like what's the next update you were looking for. So the lesson I learned is for typical BPR material, which is metallic roughness, and for daily stuff like bricks, concrete, metal, wood, the best way to achieve this is still through the UV and Substancepainter. Why is that? Because when you unfold UV for your 3D mesh and you bring it to Substancepainter, the first thing you will do is Meshmap baking. Meshmap baking is a typical and very efficient way to extract the modeling data from your mesh. So you will have curvature, you will have AO, you will have a lot of information, and literally you can quickly iterate and get the final result onto your texture. So when you bring the texture into this, you don't need to tweak a lot of settings. For example, how much awareness you need, how much AO, how much dust you need. Only thing you need, just bring material in. And you will pretty sure that is the result you're looking for, because Substancepainter will bring the final result in front of you, and it's pretty clear way to doing that. Rather than, mess a lot of nodes and doing a lot of experiment. It costs you not just time, but also your energy. So that's the third lesson I would recommend everyone doing when you're practicing your render or render a full image in Blender. The third thing is the volumetric fog. Volumetric fog is the typical way and is the most efficient way to bring the mood and the feeling into your scene. It creates a lot of depth looking. But it has pros and cons, right? Everything has pros and cons. The pros is, like what I said, you have much moody scenes, you have much depth of looking. But the negative side is it creates a lot of noise. So much noise costs you a lot of time to denoise the image to get the result. Here you can see on the ceilings, on the floors, like the previous look dive scene that we saw, it has a lot of details, like the peeling floors, broken concrete on the plane surface. Here, we can see in the look dive scene, by using the vertex blending material, we create a variation on the surface. Some of are nice and clean, others are broken. But all this detail, you can see all this very nice subtle detail, all get washed out in your final render. Why is that? Partly because of the displacement in the Blender is not superb compared to traditional render engines such as V-Ray and Arnold. That's the part of the big flaw that so far the Blender hasn't achieved super nice detailed, human facial skins like pores, etc. But it is enough to hold such details like compared to the detail on the facial. But you can see all these things got washed out because of the noise, because of the denoising pass. So, what's the solution here? We know the volumetric noise bring a noise, also cost a lot of time to render. So, I found this is super useful, which is Mpass. Mpass is very efficient way to get the depth filling of your scene. You can see here is an EV render, and here is cycle render. But no matter it's EV and no matter it's cycle, the Blender will instantly give you the result of this pass, and this missing pass could be literally used to fake or bring the result you want, the same as volumetric, but it uses such efficiently to get it. The only thing you need to do is literally in composition, use the compose node, blend the misty pass on top of your original render. That's it. But here has another problem, which is, this guard ray. This guard ray is literally generated by the natural calculation of how light cast the ray in the volumetric. But for this lighting, we can always use some like guard ray, easy guard ray, or easy fog volume to achieve this, because these are pretty cheap. And you want like natural feeling, blending look, it's all quickly adjustable in your own files. So that's the fourth lesson, the very valuable lessons, because it cost me so much time to get a result just by walk through the volumetric and the noise pass. And the fifth lesson that I learned is try to use as much as you could to find the 3D scan assets. Because nowadays the device and the requirement of 3D scan is very low, which means by one man, you can literally bring your camera, drones, and go out and scan the assets. And nowadays, software have a superb ability to regenerate those 3D scan assets. The benefit of using 3D scan assets is not only just place them as a background scene, as a background object, but it also brings you a lot of ideas. For example, this simple brick wall. You can see this brick wall has so much nice detail. And by looking at the 3D scan assets, you not only visualize the color variation or how it structured, but you can also see the depth of it, which means, a lot of people abuse the height map on the brick wall because they thought the brick would be super bumpy. But in this 3D scan, you can easily visualize how natural brick wall from the factory looks like. And so you have a lot of like detail, like not just in 2D image, but also 3D. So you can see all the steel, how it constructs, how it embedded in the brick wall. So all these 3D assets, these 3D scan assets can give you a lot of good reference and also help you to kit bash your scene, quickly polish it, making it more versatile from the final looking. And friends, those are the 5 lessons that I learned through this rendering. It is very valuable for me because I came from game industry, which is a lot of things. It's just you say it, you get the result. But typical CG rendering, offline rendering requires a different mindset. And also the very beneficiary of practice rendering in Blender is you can reevaluate your action in your workflow. For example, you maybe spend a lot of time on single assets, but those assets really didn't benefit a lot in your final render. So each decision you make, you can clearly see how much impact you will have, not just as a game or game environment. A lot of people trying to achieve some kind of like consistency and playable. But by practicing rendering, you will see which decision you make impact the image most. And it will also clear your mindset in your daily work. That's all. Thank you for listening my sharing. If you like it, please subscribe.